Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 120 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. This is going to be a great show. This show, I believe, marks 9 world champions in our last 7 shows. And this show especially, it's not just world champions. We're talking multi-weight world champions. One of them is a 2-weight world champion. The other guy is a 4-weight world champion. It is going to be big. And of course, there's many things to do on this show, including the latest news, the reviews, the previews. Anyway, let's get straight into that. Let's start with the reviews from last weekend. A couple places to visit in terms of venues and countries and the rest of it. I'm going to start over in the Crown Plaza Hotel in Glasgow, Scotland. One fight to mention over here, Gary Cornish, he proceeded to 25-2 with a knockout in the first round against David Howe. So David Howe now 14-7. I did say on last week's show, I found it quite odd that David Howe had a fight lined up for a couple weeks after this fight, because I really felt that Cornish would probably beat him, and Cornish knocked him out in the very first round. So I'm not quite sure if he's still going ahead with the proposed fight, but it is what it is. All the very best to David Howe. Seems like a decent guy. And by the way, that's the guy who Dave Allen got on the stage with when he was weighing in, and he put all those pairs of socks down his pants and made his you-know-what look huge. So, yeah, that's the guy, David Howe. Unfortunately lost here against Gary Cornish. Moving over now to the Grey Eagle Resort and Casino. Zab Judah had his 53rd professional fight, and he won. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. It was pretty much a shutout over a guy called Noel Rincon, who's now 21-14 with 1 draw. No great shakes him. And Zab Judah, for whatever reason, is back in action there. So all the very best to Zab. Seems like a nice guy once again. All the very best to him. Moving over now to the Arena Riga in Riga, Latvia. This one, of course, the first semi-final of the World Boxing Super Series Cruiserweight Tournament. I'm going to just look at the undercard here. Otto Wallin moved to 19-0. That's a heavyweight prospect from Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. He got a KO in 3 rounds against a guy who was only 6-5. Also on this bill, our very own Tom Little went over to Latvia, took on, I think the guy's an Olympian if I'm not mistaken, called Filip Hrgovic, and Tom Little put up a very brave effort. He went 4 rounds but unfortunately got TKO'd. So Tom Little now 10-5, and this guy here, Hrgovic, I think he's an Olympian. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong with anything. He moves to 3-0, so quite a decent opponent, I suppose, there for just his 3rd fight. Moving up the bill once again, I'm just gonna talk about the main event on this one. Maris Breedis putting his WBC World Cruiserweight title on the line, 23-0 record on the line also. And in the other corner, the great Ukrainian Alexander Usyk, 13-0, putting his WBO World Cruiserweight title on the line. Wow, it was a really good fight. I'm going to just break it down quickly, or not so quickly because a lot happened. It was a great first round. That's the first and foremost thing. The first round was a really great round. I think Breedis was landing single shots but getting through with really good stiff jabs and tricky right hands. Usyk was throwing in combinations but he wasn't really landing much. He kept being backed up early on, Usyk, which was quite surprising really. Breedis was on the front foot for really the entirety of the first 2 or 3 rounds. Definitely I felt that Breedis was ahead after 3 or 4 rounds for sure. I mean, he was just pressing the fight correctly. Usyk was staying in the pocket a little bit too long and being caught repeatedly. just brilliant rounds early on. Breedis, again, I think maybe the second round started really, really well, finished really well, but Usyk kind of had a few moments here and there in the middle of the rounds. It was one of those kind of rounds where you almost forget Usyk's good work in the middle of it. But yeah, Usyk was being made to cover up many times, really had to be on his defence. Usyk, he come and met Breedis in the middle of the ring. He was putting it on Breedis. I think that happened around about the third round, something like that. There was a few close rounds in there. The third and fourth round I've noted as being very close rounds. He showed me a lot of variety in his work, Breedis. I mean, I've been a little bit critical of him before. I think maybe I've kind of felt that he was a little bit one-dimensional, but for me, he was really showing a lot of variety in his work. He really does possess a lovely, lovely, sneaky left hook as well. A lot of power he gets on it as well. He was pulling out some Lomachenko moves as well. He was doing that thing where he pulls your guard down with one hand and lands a shot over the top with the other. Really clever stuff. Usyk landed a really brilliant shot in round 5, but Breedis landed a combination in return. I remember that one. That was a few good punches in that round there, round 5. Usyk seemed to be the better conditioned fighter though as the fight went on, kind of thing. In the 5th round, Usyk really turned the tables. He was constantly on the front foot. Breedis seemed to unravel a tiny little bit. He got a bloody nose in that 5th round as well. And even after 5 rounds, I've actually noted it here, I had it 3-2 in favour of Breedis. I mean, the 6th round, we saw Breedis push Usyk down on the canvas. Obviously, it wasn't a knockdown. The round for me was a Usyk round. But Breedis came on strong in the latter part of that round as well. Halfway through the fight, neither fighter had really shown us a glimpse of surrender just at that point. And throughout the whole fight, really, I mean, Usyk had a fantastic round in round 7, and that was really where I saw the tide kind of turn a little bit. But no, I mean, Breedis came back on some of those rounds as well. Round 8 and 9 were really close. Round 9 was a funny round. I mean, the best 5 or 6 punches of that round were all landed by Breedis, but you'd probably have to give it to Usyk on work rate. Usyk was relentless, like we've seen many, many times before in the pro ranks. He seemed to kind of undo Breidis's clever work, undo his clever work with those good punches that he landed. But yeah, the rounds were really close, especially in the late part of the fight. Going into the last round, I definitely had it close, but I felt that Usyk was probably edging it by 1, maybe 2 maximum. And I also thought that the location of the fight could play a little part in the judges, on the judges' scorecards. But yeah, the 12th round was a perfect round to end what had been such a brilliant fight. Amazing action constantly, unbelievable display from both the fighters. Usyk started brilliant in that 12th, and Breidis ended really well. But the majority of the fight, I mean, it was in reverse because Breidis started so well and Usyk ended so well. And in the final round, Usyk started so well and Breidis ended so well. It was a really strange one, but yeah, there were so many tight rounds in there. Ayaz, I won't carry on too much, but for me, I was scoring it, but as the fight went on, there was a few close rounds. I kind of faded away from my scorecard, and I had in my gut like maybe 1 or 2 rounds to Usyk at the end. That was the way I saw it, but a brilliant fight nonetheless, and exactly what we want to see in these tournaments and just in boxing in general, to be honest. What did you make of that fight, Ayaz?
What did I make of the fight? What can I say? What a fight it was. Big credit to Marius Breidis. He put in a very tough fight. Times off, Marius Breidis was winning the fight, right, to be honest, right? But Usyk, it's with him. It's his jab. What can I say? It came very, very close. And to be fair, Usyk won the fight. And I have to give big credit to Usyk. Very, very good fighter. And I think he'll win the tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Just to go over it once again, it was a majority decision in favour of Alexander Usyk over 12 rounds. One judge had it a draw, the other 2 judges had the same scorecard. That one was 1-1-3, 1-1-5 in favour of Usyk. Vladimir Klitschko was also in attendance, so was Lomachenko, some real stars in the house. Moving over now stateside to the Forum, Inglewood, California, USA. This one was shown on Box Nation. I'm going to start with I actually thought it was the main event, the Linares fight, but it seemed to be the co-main event. So yeah, Linares 43-3 took on Mercito Gesta, who was 31-1 with 2 draws. Linares was cut on his right eye in round 8 as well. I don't want to be overcritical. I mean, I wasn't really looking forward to this fight, and watching it, it did look like a bit of a sparring session. I was really finding it hard to, I mean, not just stay up, because it obviously was late on in the evening. I mean, the early morning, you could say, of Sunday. But I mean, just the action, it just wasn't capturing my attention. I mean, I was finding it really hard to carry on watching it, and we're going to see what Mikey Garcia looks like when he takes on Lipinets. But for me, it was just, I don't know, it didn't really pump up the Garcia-Linares unification, which we're led to believe is supposed to be happening at some point in the summer. So, yeah, I mean, it was a relatively easy win for Linares, apart from being cut in that 8th round. He successfully defends his WBA World Lightweight title there. He moves to 44-3. Mercito Gesta now 31-2 with 2 draws. Ayaz, do you want to say anything on that fight there between Linares and Gesta at all before we move on?
Well done for Linares for winning the fight. I want to see him fight. It's now Vasyl Lomachenko.
Yeah, Vasyl Lomachenko or Garcia, give me either. Moving down, or up the bill, I should say. Lucas Martin Matisse, 38-4, took on Tuwa Kiram, who was 38-0 with 28 knockouts. A guy that hadn't fought out of Thailand. We weren't too sure if he was any good. Well, to be honest, he was quite good. I mean, it was for the vacant WBA World Welterweight title, of course, the regular version. Matisse was cut over his left eye in round 4. And, you know, he was getting beaten to the punch a lot of the time. Kiram was also down twice in that 8th round where it was ultimately stopped. It was an 8-round KO for Lucas Matisse. But talking about the fight, I think Matisse found it very hard to work out Kiram. I think Kiram watched a lot of the Postal fight. Kiram was using his size to his advantage very, very well. You could see that a lot. I mean, he really did. He impressed me. I think he's quite a decent fighter. He was boxing and moving. He was holding a lot when Matisse was getting in close. He wasn't letting Matisse get in his groove, in his rhythm. Kiram was frustrating Matisse. It seemed like Matisse almost looked like he was evidently past his best in that ring for parts of that fight, for the majority of that fight, really. He looked like a shadow of his former self. And I wasn't scoring it, but I felt that Kiram was comfortably winning until that big finish in the 8th round. And that's the thing about Matisse fights. You can never count him out until it's over. It's never over till it's over, sort of thing, simply because he's such a huge puncher. But on closer inspection, when he knocked Kiram down the first time, it was a 1-2 combination. A left jab followed by a straight right, which didn't land all that heavy, in all honesty, the straight right. It was more of like a grazing shot. The second knockdown and the fight finisher was a jab. It was actually a jab. It was a delayed reaction too. Kiram got hit with a jab to the eye, which this is the finishing punch. He got hit with a jab to the eye, and he actually fired back with his own right hand before falling on his back once again, and this time the referee waved it off. It seemed to me that the jabs were the shots that actually hurt him in both of the knockdowns, and I think after the first knockdown, I didn't think he'd get up because he got laid flat out, but then he jumped up like a jack in the box, and the second knockdown, which was probably about 15 or 20 seconds later, he did well to survive that long. Again, it was a jab, like I say, the second knockdown, but it was too much for him to carry on after that second jab, and it really surprised me because although the 2 jabs that got landed for the 2 knockdowns landed quite heavy, it just didn't feel like they were jabs that would knock you down. But then again, I've seen Matisse hit people with what looks like a little tap to the head, really, and they've ended up unconscious. So he is like a little Kovalev in terms of power, another guy that can just put you to sleep with what looks like a tap. Ayaz, anything to say on the Matisse fight? This is the last fight we will be reviewing.
We've seen him fight Peterson the way he knocked out Peterson, but finally Matisse has won a world title. The last time I see him trying to fight for a world title was against Victor Postel, where he retired. But fair play, well done to Lucas Matisse. Fight I want to see him fight now is against Amir Khan.
Ooh. You must not be a big Amir Khan fan, Ayaz, because remember, if Matisse lands one, that is certainly over. I mean, he's one of the hardest punching guys pound for pound in the world for me in terms of, single shot power. I think there's a lot of fights out there for him. Obviously, he held the WBC interim 140 title for quite a while, a few defences, I think. And it was bizarre because that fight that you mentioned there against Lamont Peterson was actually a champion at the time. and they did it at a catch weight or something where his belt wasn't on the line, and it just so happened that Matisse absolutely wiped the floor with Lamont Peterson. But it was just a great shame that that the title wasn't at stake really for him. But I also heard it was something to do with because he badly wanted to fight Danny Garcia, and he didn't want to lose his ranking with, I think it may have been the I'm guessing the WBA or something like that. I can't remember which belt Garcia had at 140, but yeah, it was mad because then he went on to lose against Garcia. So yeah, strange path he's gone on, but it has ended with a world title, and hopefully he can, grab another win or two before he hangs up his gloves. But yeah, it was a shame because he didn't look all that great really, but he has got that legit power as we've seen many times. I think he's something like 39 wins now with about 36 knockouts. He really is a monster puncher. That is it for the reviewing. So just before we wrap up part one, there's one last thing to do. It's to welcome our very first multi-weight world champion on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBC and WBA champion of the world, Mr. Badou Jack. Badou, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, sir. So, Badou, it's the first time that you've been on this show. I do just want to spend a moment just looking back at your unbelievable last few wins. I just want to reel off the last 5 people that you've shared a ring with. Anthony Durrell, you beat him. You took his O. George Groves, you beat him. Lucian Boutte, you of course drew with him, but then it was overturned for a win for you when he failed a doping test. The epic draw with James DeGale, which was one of the best fights of 2017, and then ending the year by moving up in weight and taking on Nathan Cleverly, ripping away his title and absolutely beating the hell out of him. And that's coming from a British person, by the way, saying that. But tell me, Badou, which of those 5 fights there was the most enjoyable and which one was the least enjoyable for you?
When I fought Anthony Durrell, when I won the title, the first title I won, that was probably the most enjoyable one. The least was probably against James DeGale because I felt I won clearly. I was landing more than 100 punches, more than him, and it was a beatdown, in my opinion. Yeah, it was a very epic fight, like I say. And also, I just want to get your word on this one just quickly. I don't know if you saw James DeGale's last fight. He lost to Caleb Truax. I was sat there ringside, and all the media ringside were basically saying that perhaps Badou Jack has ruined James DeGale. Perhaps Badou Jack has, beat the good fighter out of James DeGale because we didn't see it against Truax. Do you believe that you could have possibly ruined James DeGale, Badou? A little bit. I think it's a combination of all the tough fights that he had, but I believe my fight with him was the toughest of his career. And boxing is a tough sport. He might never be the same, or he might need some more time, maybe change trainer or whatever. But you got to give Caleb Truax some credit because he fought a great fight. He was handpicked, as an opponent, like a tune-up fight, but he still came out, on top. So I know that guy too. He's a great guy, and he deserved, credit.
Yeah, certainly. He definitely was the rightful winner. We had him on the show a couple of weeks back, and great guy. Moving on to what's next for you, Badou. I know that you'll be fighting on May 19th in Canada against the WBC Light-Heavyweight champion Adonis Stevenson. Adonis is a man that over in the UK, he's got a bit of a reputation as kind of staying away from the big threats in the division. So all the UK fans were delighted when the fight was made. We're happy to see you fighting him. You're a genuine threat. What do you know about Adonis Stevenson, the fighter, though, Badou?
He's a good fighter. He's the lineal champion. He's one of the biggest puncher in boxing in any weight class. So he has avoided a lot of top names and stuff. But he can still fight, so he's still dangerous, but I believe I have what it takes to beat him. But it's going to be a good fight.
And I know that it took quite a while, really, a little bit longer than expected, to actually get this fight finally agreed. Are you able to talk about what delayed the fight being made at all?
No, to be honest, I don't. I mean, it's always like that in boxing. Even my fight with James DeGale, we was supposed to fight probably 6 months before we fought. But
that's true, yeah.
It happens. But the main thing is that the fight, happened now in May. But I actually called him out. I wanted to fight him. I asked for the fight right after the James DeGale fight,
in January last year. So, yeah, better late than never.
Yeah, it certainly is. And as we all know, Adonis is a southpaw. 2 of your last 3 opponents, James DeGale and Lucian Bute, have both been southpaws. Do you believe that those fights are ideal preparation before taking on a fighter like Adonis?
I mean, they're totally different opponents. He's a way bigger puncher than James DeGale and probably Lucian Bute as well. But there's still the look. The southpaw look would probably help me a little bit. But it's a total different opponent.
You talk about Adonis's power there. Do you believe this is the most dangerous fight of your career thus far? Is he going to be the hardest puncher you've faced?
As far as power, I think he's the hardest puncher. But that don't mean he's the most dangerous fighter. But that don't mean it's going to be the toughest fight either. But definitely the hardest puncher, I believe. But also the guys that he's been knocking out, they definitely not on my level. So we have to wait and see the fight night.
I just want to ask you also, who is the hardest puncher that you've faced in a pro ring? Because looking at your record, I'd probably say George Groves must be quite up there.
Yeah, he didn't really hit me clean. Like I didn't really feel his power like that. But he's a solid puncher and he has a good jab, and his fight was probably one of the toughest fights that I had. But he had decent power.
And that fight actually
nothing like Adonis, I don't think. But he's a decent puncher.
Yeah, and that actual fight that I just mentioned there, going off topic a tiny little bit, we've always wanted to see James DeGale and George Groves fight each other. It seems like it's probably never going to happen now, but you are one of the few people, I think maybe even the only person, to have shared the ring with both of them. Who do you believe's the better fighter? If they were to fight, who would you favour in that fight?
It's really hard. I've been thinking about it. I've been asked that question a lot of times. I mean, it's hard to say, who's in their prime, and when both at their top. I don't know. I think DeGale is probably more like athletic, and Groves is probably the bigger puncher, and he has a better jab also. Yeah. But no, it could go either way.
And we've had a bunch of Mayweather Promotions fighters on our podcast before. We've had Gervonta Davis, we've had, Ashley Theophane, Ishe Smith, J. Leon Love, probably one or two others that I've possibly forgot. They've all been given an expensive gift from Floyd Mayweather, usually a car. Has Floyd ever bought you an expensive present? If so, what was it, Badou?
Yeah, he's been giving me a car in the beginning of my career. He gave me a diamond Rolex when I won the title the first time. Yeah, he's been taking care of his fighters. Absolutely, he's a great guy, and I'm glad to have him as a promoter.
Yeah, excellent. Coming down to the last couple questions now, Badou. I want to ask you this. You may not want to give it to us. It's completely up to you. Have you got any kind of prediction how you're going to win your fight come May 19th?
I always go in and try to knock my opponent out. It's easier said than done, but I feel way stronger at light heavyweight, so I believe we have more power and be stronger at light heavyweight, so a little more energy. So, I'm not going up to Canada to be robbed again. I'm going out there to take him out, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll stop the fight.
Well said. And I want to ask you this. We have to ask this question to all of our all the people that we interview overseas. We like to ask, who's your favourite UK fighter of any era? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit there, and I'm banning one name off the list. You cannot say Ashley Theophane.
Shit. That's a good question. Probably Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
He counts as a British fighter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he fought for Canada and he's Jamaican, but yeah, probably him. I might have got somebody, but I like Anthony Joshua as well.
Yeah,
he's a nice guy. I would say Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, Lennox Lewis is a very popular answer, to be honest. A lot of people say him. And finally, Badou, just before we let you go, I just want to give you an opportunity to send out a message to your UK fans. Obviously, you've got a load of supporters in the UK, I'm sure, and you've got a fantastic name over here. Of course, everybody knows that you'll pretty much fight everybody. What's your message to the Badou Jack the Ripper fans from the UK?
I really appreciate all the UK fans. They out of every fans in the world, I think they've been showing me the most love. And when I was there in May last year, and they stopped me everywhere I went. So I love the UK fans. I will actually love to fight there one day, but now I beat all the fighters at Super-Middleweight and Light-Heavyweight, so I don't know who's left there. But I don't have to fight no Brits now. Maybe they accept me from like one of their own, so maybe I can fight somebody else from somewhere else and just have the fight in the UK.
That thing you just mentioned there about coming over here last May, I was one of those people. I don't know if you remember this. I'm going to just ask you it right now. I came up to you and Ashley Theophane ringside for the Gervonta Davis fight, and we took a selfie. I was in the middle of you two. Do you remember that?
Nah.
That's breaking my heart. No worries. All right, listen, Badou, it's been a pleasure, my friend, interviewing you. It really has. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for May 19th, and we'll catch up sometime after, I'm sure.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part, but as always, we go over to the Trevor McDonald of the boxing world, Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, what have you got for us this week?
The big news is Amir Khan's fight has been announced and that he will take on Philip Le Greco.
Yeah, Phil Le Greco, a guy that I suppose is not a huge name over in the UK. I mean, he's not a household name by any means, by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but he is a guy that the hardcores will know quite well. Obviously, he's a Canadian guy. If you look at his resume, I mean, it's not a terrible one, but he just about gets in BoxRec's top 100. He's actually ranked number 99. And a little fact for you here, he hasn't made the 147 limit, Ayaz, since, I think it was 2010. I'm just checking, yes, it was 2010, and it was in June. By the time the fight rolls round, he would have gone over 7.5 years that he hasn't made 147. So that's an awful sign going into a fight like this. When you look at the names on his resume, who has he really beaten? I'm struggling to kind of find a name really on there that I'd say, okay, that's a good win. He took on Sean Porter. He lost every round to Sean Porter. He took on Errol Spence. He got cleaned out in 3 rounds. Aside from that, he lost in, not his last fight, but the fight before that, he lost a unanimous decision to a guy who was 15-2. And that guy lost to, I don't want to be horrible, but nobody's really. He lost to Aaron Martinez and Javier Molina. I don't even know who Javier Molina is, but not great fighters this guy has lost to be completely honest. So I don't really think it's a great opponent. Talking about the press conference, Ayaz, that happened earlier this week, obviously, did you happen to see that little clip where Amir Khan threw the glass of water over Phil Le Greco?
Oh, yes, I did. And this is the first time I've seen Amir Khan actually throw a glass of water at someone. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing what I saw, if you watch it, Amir Khan has about 4 or 5 looks at his glass of water before he throws it. And I'm just wondering if, he was waiting for the right moment to throw the glass of water. He actually was laughing at some of the things that Phil Le Greco was saying. But don't get me wrong, he said some certainly, distasteful stuff and stuff that would or could provoke you into doing something like that. But I don't know, man. It's weird. Even if I had a glass of water in front of me, I would not think about picking it up and throwing it at someone. The first thing you'd do, if it really pushed your buttons, surely is to hit the person, especially if you're a boxer. Do you know what I mean? So I find it a little bit hard to believe that these things that we see are always real. And obviously it clashes. It's the same night as the Frampton Donaire fight as well, obviously. So yeah, I mean, they got to do something to try and get some eyes on their channel, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I like Amir Khan, and he's been out the ring for what's going to be, I think, just under 2 years or something by the time the fight rolls around. So I'm giving him a pass, really. He's certainly showed that he's got huge balls and he will fight anybody. So we'll give him a pass on this one. It's not a great opponent, but what can you really expect after 2 years out, I think. So, yeah, we'll give him a pass.
Canelo vs Golovkin has been announced on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th.
Yes, obviously we all knew that the rematch had to happen. It's the biggest money fight for both guys, you'd feel. The first fight being so controversial, it's fantastic that we're getting an instant rematch. Sometimes there can be a really controversial decision and then both guys go and do their own thing. They go their separate ways. Someone loses, someone has a close fight with someone else, and then, you know, it can all kind of jeopardize what may happen when they meet again, or if they meet again, you know, down the line. So I'm happy that both men are getting straight back in there. It made sense for everybody. It made sense money-wise, and it made sense for all boxing fans, casual or hardcore. And I just cannot wait for it. But for me, even though I'd love Golovkin to do it, I've just got a feeling that that little bit of time there, I think that, you know, Triple G has kind of, I don't want to say got one foot out the door, but I think he's coming to the end a little bit. I'm pretty sure he's slowed down a bit now. And I think that Canelo's getting better and better by the day. So for me, I definitely favour Canelo at this stage. But, you know, I really hope I'm wrong, because Triple G is one of my favourite fighters in the world.
Ohara Davies has signed with Frank Warren.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Obviously, you know, we know about this little incident that he had with Eddie Hearn and Tommy Coyle and the Sun newspaper and all the rest of it. I understand that what he actually originally said wasn't even anything to do with the Hillsborough thing. It was something to do with some guy in Tommy Coyle's gym who'd been arrested and, you know, named in the Sun or something like that. So apparently it was a dig, you know, about his mate or whatever getting arrested. So yeah, it wasn't even anything to do with the Hillsborough. That's what I'm hearing. You know, if that is the case, I mean, I'm not 100% sure because everybody's saying something different, but if that is the case, then it's really quite petty. You know, to think that a big thing's been made out of this. Listen, if he said something about Hillsborough, then, you know, obviously, whether he knew what he was saying or not, then it's a bad thing. You don't say things like that. But if it wasn't even anything to do with that, and I always kind of struggled to find the connection between Tommy Coyle being from Hull and the Hillsborough disaster. So, yeah, if it was just simply something about his, you know, one of his friends who works in his gym or whatever it is, then it's ridiculous, to be honest. You'd have to even say, and I'm not saying that Eddie Hearn's all about money or anything like that, or maybe he's all about loyalty, to be honest, but you'd have to say, if you were going to favour one, if you had to kick one and stay with the other one, you'd definitely have to kick Tommy Coyle, because Ohara Davies, whether he's liked or hated, you know, whether his fan base is bigger or smaller than Tommy Coyle's, Tommy Coyle is a fighter that doesn't have many fights left in him. Ohara Davies is obviously still on the come up. He's only got the one loss. It was to a fantastic Josh Taylor. So let's not take much away from Ohara. But yeah, he signs with Frank Warren. We all thought it may happen. Frank Warren would have absolutely loved doing that because, you know, he's, if you like, kind of stole one of Eddie Hearn's prospects there. And yeah, I quite like it. I really do quite like it. I think he's changed trainer as well. I can't remember who he's with now. But all the very best to Ohara, man. He's been on the show a few times, and our listeners know the real Ohara. He's a nice guy. He truly is.
The venue for Josh Warrington and Lee Selby has been announced, and that it'll be at Ellen Road.
Yes, obviously the home of Leeds United Football Club. There was a few rumours whether it was going to be there or not, and, you know, I'm pleased with the news. It's another open air, you know, sporting event. Obviously, sporting events happen there, open air every week with the football, but I mean, it's another boxing open air event, which doesn't happen too much, especially over in the UK where the weather's terrible. Hopefully the weather holds up, by the way. Eddie Hearn's been extra lucky a few times with his ones, and hopefully the same luck goes here with Frank. But I like what he's doing, and, you know, it just means there's more space for bums on seats. Obviously Josh Warrington got a huge following from Leeds. It's the right place to put the fight. Hopefully the place is a sellout. I really, really wish the whole event, you know, the best of success, really. But it's a brilliant fight, and I'm over the moon with it.
And finally, Eris Landelara will fight Jarrett Hurd.
Yes, that one is set to happen on April 7th. Obviously, it's a unification. Jarrett Hurd being the IBF champion and Eris Landelara being the WBA champion. Have I got that right? I'm just trying to think. The WBO is... what's his name? The guy that beat Cotto, completely slipped me. Saddam Ali. And who's got the WBC? Who's got the WBC at that weight? Oh, that's... Yeah, Jamal Charlo. Good one. Yeah. Yeah, see, we don't check things on the BoxHard podcast. It is all in the brain, even if it takes a few extra seconds just to collect it from a little pocket of space in my very small brain, I suppose. There's not many pockets. But, yeah, it's a brilliant fight. It's a unification. Obviously, Jarrett Hurd, I give him credit. He wants to fight all the big names, but I'm not quite sure he's picked out the biggest name or the best name here. And what I mean by that is it's no easy fight. For me, Erislandy Lara is the best fighter at 154, and I think that he will deal with Jarrett Hurd. I'm not saying easy, because Jarrett Hurd can really punch as well, but I think Lara should beat him. But yeah, credit to Jarrett Hurd, because I think he's the guy that's running around saying, I want the big fights, more so than Lara. I think that he really does want the big fights, and he really wants to prove himself. So to be honest, I give him a lot of credit for taking the fight, for pursuing the fight to begin with. He was probably the one who initiated the dealings with it. And, you know, you can't, you got nothing but respect for a guy like that. And listen, may the best man win. He may win, and you know, maybe Lara goes out the door. A lot of people will be happy with that, unfortunately, because he's not the most eye-catching boxer. But it's a brilliant fight, and I'm happy it's been made, along with a few great fights, to be honest, over the last 7 days or so.
That's it for the news.
Okay, Ayaz, thank you very much. 2018 really shaping up to be a fantastic year of boxing, just like 2017. Moving over now to the previewing, we're going to start over in Russia. It's again the World Boxing Super Series semi-final in the cruiserweight sector of the tournament. This is the final semi-final. Obviously, last week was the first one. This is the second and last one here. On the undercard, though, there's a fight that I just want to mention here. It's for the WBA International Super-Middleweight title. Fedor Chudanov, that's the former world champion, a man that lost I think it was the vacant title to George Groves. So he didn't really lose it, but he lost the fight for the vacant title to George Groves, which George Groves has now got that WBA title. Well, anyway, Fedor Chudanov, 16-2, takes on Bobby Gunn Jr. Now, people will have heard that name. Bobby Gunn is a guy that I think he was campaigning at cruiserweight for quite a while. I think he's had a handful of fights, including one against Roy Jones Jr., if I'm not mistaken, once upon a time. He's a big friend of the Tyson Fury camp. And this is his son, Bobby Gunn Jr., 9-0. It's a humongous step up here. And may the best man win, because I really have got to admire the nuts, to be honest, of the Gunn family. They all take all these crazy fights. And listen, if he's anything like his old man, then I'm sure he won't go down easy in this one. Also, the main event here for the IBF and WBA Super World Cruiserweight titles. Murat Gassiev, 25-0. Is he the IBF champ? Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's IBF.
Yeah, I mean, Murat Gassiev, 25-0, Junior Dorticos, 22-0. He's got the WBA Super World Cruiserweight title. First and foremost, both men can punch. We've seen in the Cruiserweight tournament, you know, there has been a handful of decisions and there has been a handful of knockouts. Dorticos, the way he dealt with the Russian hammer last time out was really impressive for me. Obviously, overall, in those 22 wins, he's got 21 knockouts. But that win, like I said, against Kudryashov in the second round, he looked absolutely brilliant. He knocked out Kalenga before that. He's coming off of 4 knockouts in a row. You've got to go back to 2014 when he took on Edison Miranda, former opponent of Tony Bellew. That was the last time he went the distance. But since then, and he hasn't been overly active, to be honest, but since then he's been putting people to sleep. We've gone to the prediction league on this also. But for me, Gassiev's only 24, people forget, because he looks much older. He's got 18 knockouts from his 25 wins. You know, he beat Woladzik in the quarterfinals, who I don't really regard as a brilliant fighter. He had a split decision win over Denis Lebedev back in 2016. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. For me, I'm favouring Dorticos, and it's not a very popular decision. I just think he's going to win. And of course, everybody saw that bit of footage where Dorticos is doing pad work with his pad man and he accidentally knocks the pad man out. I don't know if he meant to do it or if the guy was play acting or what, but that looked a bit crazy. Yeah, Ayaz, I'm going to ask you, what's your thoughts on this fight, and secondly, what your prediction is for this fight?
I think it'll be a very good fight. Obviously, the winner's going to go on to fight Usyk, but I haven't really seen both fighters fight before. But if I'm going to have to choose, I'll probably go with Dorticos as well, because I see one of his fights and I think he was very good. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dorticos to win on by points.
That is actually, looking at our our prediction league, we asked the poll on Twitter. That is the least most popular opinion, Donaire to win on points. I think a lot of people going with the knockout. The favourite here, according to our listeners, 38% went with Gassiev by knockout and 32% went with Donaire by knockout. Only 24% going with Gassiev on points and just 6% going with Donaire on points. So I'm going Donaire knockout, you're going Donaire points, and the listeners going Gassiev points. Just to remind everybody, I will say at the end of the show what the current scores are. We should have done it last week because I predicted them all off air and got them all right, which was quite annoying. On the week where we didn't do the prediction league, I got some right for once. Yeah, it's a fantastic fight. Like you say there, I think both men will be tested here against each other. It's definitely, each man's hardest fight. I think Donaire, if he wins this fight, and especially if he impresses, especially if he did something like knock Gassiev out, I think he's the bigger man as well. If he knocks Gassiev out, then I think the Usyk and Donaire fight could be really, really interesting. I'd still favour Usyk, but Donaire really, really can punch. He's a Cuban, but he's not a southpaw. Those are some of the most, awkwardest Cubans ever. The ones that you think, yeah, he's definitely a southpaw. No, he's not. He hits you with the big right backhand. Donaire can really crack. So for me, I think he wins that fight by knockout. But yeah, credit to the Sauerlands and all the rest of it. I'm sure this fight is on ITV box office, but it's free for the UK viewers, which is excellent stuff. Moving over now to the O2 Arena, I will be there in attendance this weekend. Starting with the undercard, Charlie Edwards 11-1. His opponent yet to be announced. He's on the bill also. Felix Cash 7-0. His opponent yet to be announced. That's a 6-rounder there. Also on the bill, a pretty decent-ish fight, I suppose. Dorian Darch returns to the ring the first time after being blasted out by Daniel Dubois. His record 12-6 with 1 draw. He's in a 6-rounder against the undefeated heavyweight Nick Webb. That should be good for Nick Webb there. He needs to be on these bigger bills. He's been let down in a few big fights recently. People pulling out of fights and fights falling out of bed and stuff like that. Danny Dignam 4-0. He's in a 6-rounder against Reese Pagan 14-5. That's a step up for Danny Dignam. Josh Buatsi takes on a guy called Jordan Joseph, who's 7-1 with 1 draw. Obviously Josh Buatsi 3-0. That's a 6-rounder there. Joshua Buatsi, everybody's massively high on him. They're saying that he could be the most promising Olympian that's just turned over. And obviously I want to see him really, really tested. I know that it's early. I like what they're doing. This is another opponent with a winning record, I suppose. This guy hasn't been knocked out. The one loss was to Chris Hobbs. It was a close points loss. Chris Hobbs is a guy that got knocked out by Anthony Yard in like the 4th round or something like that. So yeah, it's a steady step up, I suppose. Also on this bill, Paul Butler 25-1. He takes on a yet to be announced opponent. That's an 8-rounder there. And now with the 3 top fights and some good ones here, Reese Bellotti 11-0 takes on Ben Jones 22-6 with 1 draw. That's for the Commonwealth featherweight title. Obviously Ben Jones, a friend of the show. He was on a few weeks ago. Really lovely guy, Ben Jones. He's done it the hard way, he's really done it the hard way. Former WBO European champion. He's won a few other belts as well. And obviously Reese Bellotti, he's really putting people away that he perhaps shouldn't be. He's a really exciting little fighter. I think it's a brilliant step up, to be honest. But the bad thing here, what you'd have to say, is both men in their last fight took on the same guy. Ben Jones lost, very, very close points loss, which he thinks he definitely won. And Reese Bellotti got the knockout of the guy. His name slipped me. Once again, I'm going to that mind pocket for this one. And now, the chief support, I suppose, Ted Cheeseman, 12-0, takes on the US Dangerman, Carson Jones, the upsetter, 40-12 with 3 draws. This one's for the vacant WBA International Super Welterweight title. Ayaz, firstly, what's your thoughts on that fight? A huge, huge step up for Ted Cheeseman. Obviously, Carson Jones been over here and upset a few people. He had that really close fight with Kell Brook, and then he lost the second time round. He come over here and knocked out Brian Rose, and then he lost in the rematch. it's a huge step up for Ted Cheeseman, especially Carson Jones, just having recently been robbed against former world champion Antonio Margarito. He's on a bit of form, and he's only 30, people forget. He's not too old. I thought he was about 45. He's only 30.
Doesn't he trains with Abel Sanchez, doesn't he, first of all?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's a very big step up for Ted Cheeseman that he's fighting Carson Jones. Obviously, we've seen Carson Jones fight in the UK on numerous occasions, like you see, Cale Burrow, Brian Rose. He's recently lost to Antonio Margarito, but a lot of people said that he got robbed. Ted Cheeseman is a very good fight, but it's a 50-50 fight. But if I'm going to go for a win, I'm going to go for Ted Cheeseman because I think it's in the UK and I think he'll win by points.
Yeah, and that is a popular decision. That is actually what the listeners are going with as well. That's 46% of listeners going with Ted Cheeseman on points, 26% going with Cheeseman by KO, just 17% going with Carson Jones by KO, and 11% going with Carson Jones on points. I am going to do the the unexpected decision, which I always do. I always go against the grain, and sometimes it doesn't work. Most of the time it doesn't work. But anyways, I'm going with Carson Jones to win by knockout, simply because he's fought much better opposition, as we've all known. He's a tough, rugged guy. He can get deep if he needs to. Ted Cheeseman hasn't had that test yet as a pro. Carson Jones has got 30 knockouts to his name, very heavy-handed. For me, I'm going with the tricky veteran, as they say. I'm going with Carson Jones. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because he's just got to stop. If he comes over here and knocks out one of our boys again, send him back and keep him over there. We don't need him coming over here and taking our prospects' O's. So, all the very best to both men, especially Ted Cheeseman, but I am going with Carson Jones by knockout. He certainly isn't to be overlooked. When that fight first got announced, people were going mad on Twitter saying it was a mismatch. I thought that was crazy. But yeah, it is what it is. And the main event here, this one's for the vacant WBA Continental Cruiserweight title. Lawrence Okolie in one corner, the former 2016 Olympian, 7-0 his record at the moment. Big puncher, as we all know. He's been training with Anthony Joshua, I think, and a few other guys. I think he's been training with the GB boys. Isaac Chamberlain, he's just got back from the USIC camp over in Ukraine. I think it's the second time he's been out there. His record 9-0. Both men undefeated. Somebody's O's got to go. And more importantly, there's a belt on the line here, so things are really getting serious. And I'm really happy that both men have took this fight, because they really didn't need to. It's very early on for two guys like this who really haven't really even reached title level yet, to put it all on the line. I mean, this is the first title that they're fighting for. Obviously, Isaac Chamberlain, he was the Southern Area champion, but I'm talking like English, British titles, stuff like that. I'm not knocking the Southern Area belt at all, but yeah. It's a 12-rounder. I mean, it's a really interesting fight. Obviously, Lawrence Okolie himself, and we should note this could play a factor here. Lawrence Okolie himself, the longest he's gone in terms of rounds is the 6th round. That was back in September. He went 6 rounds with Blaise Menduo. He had his man down in the 4th round though. And aside from that, he's got 6 knockouts in his other fights. Isaac Chamberlain, I mean, he's not really known as a big puncher. 4 knockouts from 9 wins. He's been the distance a couple of times, mainly over 4 rounds. His first 4 professional fights were all 4-rounders. He went the distance in all 4 of them. And obviously, most recently, the time he went the distance was when he went points with Wadi Camacho in a thrilling fight at York Hall for the Southern Area title, the one where Chamberlain dislocated his shoulder. But since that fight, he's knocked out everybody he's fought. 3 wins, 3 knockouts. It's a brilliant fight, Ayaz, isn't it? I mean, we're really happy. All the hardcores, especially, really, really happy with this fight being made. They didn't really need to take this fight, I didn't feel.
Obviously, like you said, it's a very good fight. For me, I personally think it's a 50-50 fight. Why? Because with Okolie, he's got a lot of amateur pedigree. He's gone on to spar Joshua, whereas Isaac Chamberlain, you don't see, obviously we've seen videos of Lawrence Okolie sparring, but when you see you don't see videos of Isaac Chamberlain sparring because he doesn't like to show it. But if you've seen it, he sparred the likes of in the future past Deontay Wilder. He's gone to spar Usyk again. He's gone Usyk. Sparred Joshua as well. Marius Wack. Was it Wack? Who's the other one? Polish one.
Masternak.
Masternak.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trained with sparred with Masternak.
Did you happen to see that video they did, the promo video, where Isaac Chamberlain said, "When I'm done with Okolie, he'll be back flipping burgers." Did you see that?
Oh yes, I saw that. Right,
That was embarrassing.
Usyk is hoping he will see Isaac Chamberlain win his British beef with Lawrence Okolie. Now he says one of his quotes here. He wants to improve, to get better every day, every time we spar. And I've seen him get better and better step by step. I gave him a little bit of advice, especially if he asks, and he's definitely hits hard for a cruiserweight. Now that he's been sparring Usyk. But if I'm going to go for a winner, I'll tell you what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Isaac Chamberlain because I think he's got more for boxing brain than Lawrence Okolie. And I think Isaac Chamberlain is more technical. And he studies boxing a lot, if you can tell, with the way he fights. He may not have the power, but he's a very good boxer. He's one of those people that likes to box and move. And I think what is Isaac Chamberlain? I'm going to go for Chamberlain win by points.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there, Ayaz. I'm going with Chamberlain by points. That's actually the second most popular answer on our poll. And the listeners have actually gone with 45% of people going with Okolie by knockout. So, yeah, that's huge. It is close to a 50-50 fight in my honest opinion. As you say there, Chamberlain, the sparring that guy has done, and he really dedicates his life to boxing. He's got absolutely no social life whatsoever. I spoke to him earlier this week. I always speak to him every at least once a week. I'm always speaking to him, and you know, he really is not even in the mood to talk to me this week or the past couple of weeks. He's not even, I mean, he's replying, but he doesn't want to talk about anything at all. You know, anything. He doesn't want to have any kind of full-blown conversation. I asked him, does he want to come on the show? He doesn't even want to come on the show. He said, we'll do it after the fight. The guy is so into this fight. And it just goes to show how serious he's taking Lawrence Okolie. When he says, you know, he's going to beat him, and, you know, his uncle said that if Isaac doesn't knock Okolie out, then he's going to give up boxing and all that stuff. It's just a bit of tongue-in-cheek. Isaac Chamberlain knows this is a huge test, and it's going to be the hardest fight of his life. So, you know, Isaac knows that. Isaac has got absolutely no social life, and this is what he's been doing. He's just a complete gym rat. He's been sleeping gym, a little bit of eating, sleeping gym. That's all he's done, you know, eat, sleep and gym. And you got to give him credit for that. I think he's took this extremely seriously. I know that Okolie has as well, and he definitely should have, and both men should, but Isaac has really shut himself off, and this is the first time I've seen him do this. He's really taking this seriously. He's even come off social media. He's got somebody controlling his social media. It's not even him on there. So, you know, he's really got his mind on it. That's what I'm saying. So we may see a completely different Chamberlain. Also, as you say there, he's been locked away with Alexander Usyk in training camp. Nobody's seen what's gone on there. Usyk himself is saying that he hits hard. Nobody would have said that beforehand. And also, Usyk saying that he's improved every time. We haven't really had the chance to see it. I mean, he's knocked out his past 3 guys, but they haven't been any Lawrence Okolies in there. So intrigue is all I'm feeling. It is a pure intriguing fight. I'm happy that I'm going to be there in attendance, but for me, I think Isaac Chamberlain wins on points, or I think he possibly could win a late stoppage. But yeah, the first few rounds, Lawrence Okolie, and I think he will. I think he only fights one way. I think he's going to really put the pressure on Isaac, and I don't want to say I wouldn't be shocked for an early stoppage for Okolie, but I think Okolie's going to throw everything at Isaac and try and unsettle him straight away. And if Isaac's made to fight, because that's the thing about Isaac, I think sometimes if the fight is not at his own pace, he can get a little bit, you know, a little bit one-dimensional and look a little bit bad, you know? I think it's got to be at his pace, and I think he's got the ability to make it at his pace, but it's just a pure intriguing fight. It really is. I just can't wait for Saturday. It's a brilliant fight. But moving over now stateside, moving over to the Bank of America Center in Texas, USA. 4 fights to mention here. Jose Benavidez, that's the brother of the super-middleweight world champion David Benavidez. He's 25-0. He takes on Matthew Strode, who's 24-5. That's an 8-rounder there. Jesse Hart, former world title challenger, he's on this bill as well. His record 22-1. He's in his first fight back since losing that world title fight to Gilberto Ramirez. He takes on Thomas Awimbono, who's 25-7 with one draw. A bit of a padded record, Awimbono, but that's a 10-rounder there. Also on the bill, the man that recently beat Jamie Conlan for the world title, Jerwin Ancajas, 28-1 with one draw. He puts his IBF World Super Flyweight title on the line against Israel Gonzalez, who's 21-1. Haven't looked at him, to be honest, so I apologise for that. And the main event, Gilberto Ramirez himself, 36-0, looking to move to 37-0, really closing in on Deontay Wilder's unbeaten record now. He puts his WBO World Super-Middleweight title on the line against Habib Ahmed, who's also undefeated, 25-0 with one draw. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this one's on Box Nation as well. I'm pretty sure it is this Saturday. So yeah, for those guys that are going to be staying at home on Saturday, it's a fantastic night to stay at home on Saturday because you've got the Matchroom show on, you know, on I think maybe about 7 or something, but watch out because it's not just on the main event Sky Sports channel. It's actually on the Arena or the Action channel. It's on like half an hour earlier on there, so don't miss the first half an hour. And then obviously when it finishes a little bit later on in the evening, there's a few hours in between. If you've got a missus, you can show her a bit of attention in between, because that's how my missus gets a bit lonely. You've got to sort of, you know, divide your time equally, or as equal as you can. And then you're ready for the Gilberto Ramirez card. Hopefully they show a couple of the undercard fights on that one. But yeah, back to the fight itself, back to his opponent, Habib Ahmed. I don't know too much about him. I'm just going to look at his resume right now. He's a guy from Ghana. He is 5'8". 5'8", that's incredibly short for a super middleweight. Really is short there. I mean, Gilberto Ramirez is 6'2.5", but 5'8's pretty short there. I'm looking at the names here, and there's not fantastic names there. So for me, not that we've done the predictions on it, but yeah, for me, it's probably quite an easy win there for Gilberto Ramirez. I would have preferred to see the Jesse Hart rematch. I don't think this guy's going to put up much of a fight. 25-0 with 17 knockouts. The one draw came against a guy in 2016 who was 3-7. So that kind of speaks for itself. Right, that's it for that bill. Moving over to the final bill, which is happening on Sunday in Japan. There's one fight to mention on this one. The WBC World Flyweight Champion Daigo Higa, looking like he will be perhaps challenging Andrew Selby in the near future, even though I'm hearing rumours that Selby will be fighting for the EBU European title. But anyways, Daigo Higa, 14-0, takes on Moises Fuentes, who's 25-4 with one draw, a name that's been around that, you know, that flyweight kind of class for quite a while now. Fuentes, I can't remember who he's boxed, but he's definitely been on the end of my tongue a few times on this podcast fighting different guys, so I think that's quite a good fight. So all the best in that one as well. But that really wraps up the previewing. We've tried to whiz through everything as quick as possible today, and I hope that we've not been too long-winded, especially with the preview, with the reviews earlier. I was a little bit long on that one, so I apologise. But yeah, that is the reviewing done. That is the news done. That's the previewing done. The first guest has been and gone. It's now time, just before we wrap up the show and end part 2, the last thing to do is to welcome our second multi-weight world champion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former 4-weight world champion, Mr. Nonito Donaire. Nonito, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's always my pleasure, Nonito. It's always my pleasure. So we last spoke, Nonito, back in December 2016. Not a lot has really happened since then. Obviously, you've had just the one fight in which you took on Ruben Hernandez. You beat him unanimously over 10 rounds for the vacant WBC Silver title. That was back in September, obviously, of 2017. Your next fight will be happening, as we all know, in the UK. Something that you told me last time was a dream of yours to do a fight in the UK. How happy are you to get that opportunity at this stage of your career, Nonito?
I'm very happy knowing that I'm fighting somebody really, who has a big name, and and who's willing to fight me as well. So, I'm very happy to be out there with a big name in the UK. So, it's a big opportunity.
And you've been linked with a few UK fighters now. I remember when we last spoke, you were talking a little bit of a possibility that we could see you take on Scott Quigg. Obviously, that fight didn't happen. You're now going to be taking on Carl Frampton. Tell us, Nonito, what do you know about Carl Frampton, the fighter?
Well, I've seen some of his fights. I've seen the Santa Cruz fights as well, and he's an overall fighter. He can fight, he can box, he can counter. So, he's a dangerous guy when it really comes down to it. But aside from that, we're very excited at the same time.
And Nonito, did you manage to catch his last fight at all?
No, I didn't get that tape yet, but I'm gonna once I start camp, I'm gonna start going into training mode and watching the fight.
Yeah, because his last fight, he really didn't look so good. A lot of people were very critical of him, and based on his last performance, my personal prediction for this fight, I actually believe you're going to beat him. I truly do. I'm not just saying that because you're here. He looked really not too good in his last fight, but that's another matter. I remember at the press conference, the other week, you mentioned that you were given a very warm welcome in Belfast. How much has that meant to you personally as a travelling fighter, an away fighter in a city that loves Carl Frampton so much? You've been shown a lot of love over there.
Yeah, that was incredible for me. Just to welcome and them welcoming to the gyms, their cafe, to their places. It was incredible. But talking to Carl when we were at the press conference, he just said that this is what Belfast is. We respect good fighters, and they respect you. So to me, that meant a lot to me. I mean, I had to perform the best that I can, to train out there, and I know that they respect Carl and love Carl because he's a good fighter as well. So, it just brings a lot of excitement knowing that the guys are out there, and it's going to change during the fight. That's where they get right behind them and stuff like that. But for now, what they've shown has been incredible.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Over here, what everybody thought was actually going to happen was that Carl Frampton was going to probably fight the winner out of Lee Selby and Josh Warrington. Obviously, those guys are fighting each other. That's been announced this week. But everybody thought that Carl would probably just take a keep busy fight in the meantime, somebody he could beat easily, and then he'd be around for the winner of that fight. So obviously I was quite shocked when I saw that he's going to be taking you on. I think it's caught the boxing world by surprise, really. In this fight, Nonito, if you can tell us, is there a rematch clause, or are you in position to take on the winner if you were to win? Do you know at this stage?
Well, I'm not sure about the contract. There might be hold on.
No problem.
Rematch clause.
Contract is confidential.
Yeah, so I'm not really quite sure how the whole thing is. I mean, Ringstar and all of them guys did that stuff. So, but it's confidential is what they tell me. Knowing that I'm the one that's fighting. So, yeah, so I'm just excited to be given the opportunity. I've never really delved into it. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I think he'd be pretty smart to stick a rematch clause in. Obviously, it's a very, very risky fight. In my eyes, Nonito, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've had so many big nights in boxing that I think it's kind of got to a stage now where you need a big challenge or a big fight to actually be fully, concentrated on your game. I feel like maybe you've not been as motivated previously in recent times. Is that fair to say? And if I'm right, is this the perfect fight that, gets you motivated?
I think so. You're completely right when it comes down to that, and I think that's why I took this fight. Well, I know that I took this fight because of all the disadvantage that I have, knowing that, there's a young guy here. It's in his place, and I got a lot of respect for the guy. I mean, it just has all the formula to get me out there, and I think that's the same thing as him. Is there's a tough guy in front of me, and I need to be in my 100%. I think we're both kind of in the same boat when it comes down to it, that it's a must win, but then at the same time, we pick the guys who's going to inspire us to be at our best.
And you've said to me previously, Nonito, that there's been a few fights in which you've just simply relied on one punch, which is your big left hook, and you've relied on that to end the fight, and sometimes it's played against you and you've ended up losing because of that. Do you believe that you will need much more than your left hook to beat a man like Carl Frampton?
Oh, definitely. I think that he has to take back the time of how I used to create strategies and set up, and traps, and counter as well. Not just one punch, but go out there and be a complete fighter like I haven't seen in a long time.
Okay, certainly. And obviously you did a little bit of singing at the press conference. Carl Frampton came back with his own singing. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. He can sing pretty well. Yeah, he was. It was a surprise to me. For me, and his accent was gone when he was singing. I mean, it was incredible. I really enjoyed it. I might come up with another song to challenge him. But this is a sports that that's why he's loved, because he's out there. It has nothing to do with being in the outside. It's what we're gonna do inside that matters. But then when we're outside, we're just hanging out. Maybe I might have a beer after the fight with him.
Yeah. Put a karaoke machine in that room as well, and I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time, the pair of you.
Oh, that's exactly it. You're welcome to join us, by the way.
Thank you. And finally, the last couple of questions, Nonito. You don't have to give us one if you don't want to, but do you have any kind of prediction for this fight? How will you win come April 21st?
Well, I haven't put my whole game plan yet to see how I can look at his disadvantage, his flaws that allows me to because I always go out there for something big. I always go out there. I never really want to go to the decision because that's just how I am. I like to leave no man standing. If it's me or if it's him, it's always been that way with me. So, because that's just how I am as a warrior, as a fighter. But prediction-wise, not really the type to give the prediction. I'm just going to go out there and give it all I got, and victory. That's pretty much it.
No, of course. And just before I let you go, Nonito, anything that you want to say at all to the UK fans that may be listening?
Well, I'm grateful for this opportunity. This is a fight that is a must-watch. I mean, you got two fighters who's willing to take the fight to each other without a belt. This is how bad and respected we have for each other. But most of all, we're gonna go out there to prove something for what I have and what he has to prove. I mean, we have everything on the line on this fight, and this is gonna be one of the biggest fight or most exciting fight you guys will see. So, again, it's gonna be exciting. So I want to thank you guys again for this opportunity.
Excellent, thank you very much. And just before I let you go, actually, Nonito, I just want to quickly tell the listeners this. When we last spoke to Nonito, it was back in December of 2016. It was on the Christmas special show, and it was a very different Nonito Donaire. Back then, he wasn't really in fight mode. He was dropping a lot of spiritual stuff. It was a really interesting, long, in-depth interview. And at the end, he was talking with some brilliant words. If anybody hasn't heard it, go back and listen to that. It's absolutely golden. And at the very end, people don't know this, but I stayed up pretty late to interview Nonito, and at the end I said, I got to go to sleep now, I'm really tired. And Nonito said, Joey, close your eyes, I'm going to throw a left hook. And I'm telling you, I felt the left hook and I was asleep in 5 seconds. That's a true story.
That's great. See, you felt it. You felt the energy, man.
Yeah, Nonito,
but I remember that you stayed up and he was like, oh, we'll do it tomorrow when you're ready. And you're like, no, I'm still up. So I stayed up. So we did it then. So yeah, that was cool.
Okay, listen, Nonito, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my friend. You know that. Best of luck for April 21st, and we'll catch up again after, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on the show. Thank you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 120 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to our two amazing guests on this week's show, the 2-weight world champion Badou Jack and the 4-weight world champion himself, Mr. Nonito Donaire. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to the listeners for making this podcast as great as it is. Please remember, if you do get a chance, to leave us a review on iTunes, as I cannot put into words how much we appreciate those. They really do mean a lot. The prediction league currently stands at myself on 17 points, Ayaz on 20 points, but you, the listeners, in the lead with 21 points. Best of luck with the predictions, everybody. Enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you next week.